I love liberals. I love liberals. I love liberals. I'm not afraid to say it. Okay? I am so sick and tired of boomers, which I made a whole video about already. So, but I just see time and time and time again, they are just defined by liberals. Their entire ideology is just anti-liberal, right? You just come across some post of somebody talking about something with Israel or something, they'll be there in the comments. I didn't know the liberals paid you to run this page. Didn't know you were a pussy selling out this country to the liberals. You know, it kills me. I think the epitome of this is car-based infrastructure. Okay, so if you go back like 10 plus years ago, you could find like right-wing populist kind of people writing about why car-based infrastructure is bad and how it has, pulled apart community and created isolation, and it's decentralized churches from the center of communities. And then within the past 5 or 6 years, liberals have started to become vocally against car-based urban infrastructure because it's consistent with their beliefs on climate change and because they worship Europe. And now, within that time, because the liberals picked their side, now all of the neocons, they've got to pick the opposing side. And you've got all these lovely boomers. Well, I'm running my Ford F1100, and I just sit and let it idle. I idle away 80 gallons of gas just to troll the liberals. I saw a park the other day, and I went to my city hall and I said, can we please put 5 square miles of interstate on this park and fill my mug with some liberal tears? Oh my goodness, right? And my favorite is when they see anybody who's like actually right wing, and somehow this is still about liberals, right? If you're real right, if you're someone who's actually right wing, then well, you're just a plant in order to divide us, right? And so that the liberals can win. Give me a break. So we're making a video about my love for liberals, okay? Sure, I was there for Charlie Kirk's assassination. Genuinely rest in peace. I know that there's a lot of them who think we should be dead for our beliefs. I also wonder, I definitely think there's an outsider bias to seeing that, right? We're going to hear from the most extreme vocal, left wingers. If you were in group as a left winger, you'd probably see more of a range of people. Or maybe not. Maybe every single one of them wants me dead. But you know what? I don't feel the same way. I don't. All right? Because first of all, let's get this straight. Like, horseshoe theory is real, all right? If you are a leftist and you come to sit down here with me as a I don't know, an extreme right-wing restorationist, we're going to have a lot of issues in terms of quantity, a lot of issues in common. There's big issues that we both care very much about, that we are completely different on. But on a lot of issues, increasing number of issues, we see eye to eye. All right, we're both going to be anti-corruption, anti-billionaire. We don't want data centers. We don't want a surveillance state. Okay, we want, when it comes to like infrastructure and stuff, we're going to have a lot of agreements on that. And especially what's really important is when we're talking about a community level issues, when we're talking about local politics, that's where we have the most in common. Like basically everything I named right there was a local issue. And that's what's most important. Like you should prioritize your local politics because the national stuff is far away. You're gonna have basically, it's almost impossible for you to have an impact on that. It's all gonna be about, I talked about this before. It's more political theater. You're just gonna be making yourself feel good and wasting your attention and efforts. So in the ways that it really matters, I've got a lot in common with a liberal. So let's start there. Secondly, how could you hate them? I just feel sympathy, okay? Because this is not a parody video. This is real, okay? What's the first thing that a leftist is going to tell you about themselves? They're going to tell you about, I've got all of these mental health problems. It's a huge part of my identity. I'm anxious and schizo and bipolar and, this new thing called Guanheimer syndrome that you've never even heard of yet. That's who you're hating on? Come on, brother. Like, they've got 10 aces, and it's adverse childhood experience, by the way. Their parents got divorced when they were little. They've got zoochosis like every other person in today's world. Human zoochosis. They are, like I've talked about before, they're running brain design to live in a small village. It's perpetually information overloaded. Like, it's understandable. Like, in my experience, it's so funny how much they will just like tell you this up front too. And maybe just across the board, like in these days, if you show somebody the slightest bit of authenticity, they will just explain to you what is wrong with them. All right, so I've got this one example. I posted something online, I think I just said that kinks are for ugly people, which is true. I know I'm looking kind of chopped right now. These glasses suck. I need a haircut. But I stand by it. Kinks are for ugly people. And so naturally, this ugly is writing in my comments, writing a reply angrily back about, I'll spare you the graphic details that he provided, but he's having all kinds of sex and and doing all this, that, and the other. Which, side note, this happens all the time as well. It's hilarious. Uglies always cope with their looks by talking about how much sex they have. Yeah, you're having sex with other uglies. Brother, come on. I shouldn't be hating on that. Right? It's this thing, they got a little bit of self-esteem, okay? I shouldn't take that away from them. But this guy is telling me about this stuff, and it genuinely sounded really pitiful. And so I said, I kind of changed my tone. I stopped trolling for a minute, and I was like, dang, bro, that sounds kind of sad. Like, I hope things get better for you. And unprompted, he was just then explained this whole story about I was married for 10 years and she was cheating on me the whole time, etc., etc. And I'm like, brother, that's what this is about. You're not angry at me. You're not, you don't genuinely think this whole, you know, promiscuity, polyamorous thing you've got going on is this great thing. You're hurting. So what are we doing hating on these liberals? You know, what's their crime? The fact that they've been misled politically, the fact that their ideas are stupid, like that's their crime, having dumb ideas. And they're you know, they're Satan. They're the worst thing ever. That's all we have to do is fight the liberals with no nuance. Come on. You know, and I understand, right? Like I said, a lot of them want us dead. And so there's definitely, we have to, you know, I'm not looking to grant liberals any increase in power and influence. By no means do I want that. But I don't want to, I don't know. You have all kinds of things people suggest. And so, continuing on, they've got good hearts, right? Like genuinely trying to be, right? They're just trying to be nice people. Fortunately, the world is difficult and dark and complex, and so our kindergarten level ethics are not necessarily useful for political action, but they're just that's their goal. Like they're just trying to be nice and make people happy. Yeah, and what I think our movement could use a little bit of that, right? Especially as Christian men, we're trying to walk the straight and narrow with how we're shaping our civilization, with what we want to do going forward. We, as Christian men, we don't want to go, oh, billions must die kind of route. We don't want that. And so maybe if we could bring some of these liberals into the fold, we could use a little bit of that heart. All right, let's have let's have some trauma informed right wing extremism, shall we? Are we gonna go for more water or more tea? We're gonna go more water. All right, what else was I gonna say? I had one other thing I was thinking about that I wanted to talk to you all about before we wrap this up. They've got good hearts. They're mentally ill. Right? And that's not, you know, we can be understanding of that. That doesn't mean you got to be locked up. You know, get a shrink. Yeah, not a therapist who's just going to turn you into a narcissist. Damn, I was on such a roll. Oh yes. If you're a leftist, especially if you're like a really extreme leftist, I can trust you a little bit more. And I thought of this recently. I'm in the middle of watching this video from a guy who's kind of left-leaning anarchist. And it's sort of his manifesto thesis on the state of our world today. And he starts off, he's like, he talks about how left-wingers are usually anti-capitalist. He's like, oh, I'm not really anti-capitalist. It's pretty good. And at some point in the video, he brings out he brings out his little George Soros little book, and he's quoting from it, and I'm like, do I trust that this is, you're not a Fed, that this isn't a psyop? Do I? And I'm pretty anti-psyop. Psyops themselves are a psyop, right? They want you to doubt everything, think everything's a psyop. But if you're like full throttle left wing, if you're like guillotine billionaires, the whole system's gotta come down, right? I trust that you're probably not funded by the CIA. Now, people in power may be shaping you in those beliefs to manipulate you, but I can trust that at your core, you're genuinely anti-establishment. So there's that too. Like, there's a trustworthiness to being a liberal extremist. So, all in all, to say, I wanted to make a little video. You've heard me say it, why I call them the lovable leftoids, because I love them. I do. And you know what? I'm not giving up. I believe we can still red pill these guys. They can still, and even if we don't, if we can call truce even on some big issues, we're compatible. All right? So, and I'm more anti. I'm I'm more anti-boomer. I'm a Zoomer supremacist than I am anti-liberal. And I'm also, a lot of the videos that I plan on doing soon are a lot of either critiquing sort of left-wing positions or like left-wing versus right-wing positions. And so I just wanted to get this off my chest. I might disagree, I might criticize all this stuff, but I still welcome you into our right-wing extremist movement. All right. So, I love liberals. I love my lovable leftoids. God bless everybody.